Welcome back to Hot Air, the podcast where we serve queer culture, controversy, and a whole lot of chaotic curiosity. I'm your host, Joshua Robert, and today we're going to dive headfirst into a world that is part rumor, part rainbow, and all ridiculous. I am talking LGBTQ plus conspiracy theories because we're sticking with some spooky season inspiration. And I'm recording this episode in the morning, which I normally do in the evening. So my voice is still waking up. So we have that sex phone operator voice. But we're going to talk about the so-called gay agenda, the idea that the rainbow is being used for mind control. We'll talk the Babadook's accidental rise to becoming the queer icon that he is, to the theory that gay aliens built the pyramids. Yes, you heard that right. And then finally, the infamous gay bomb that was actually proposed by the US military. So like kind of half conspiracy, half fucking fact. We're unpacking how these conspiracies started, what they say about queer visibility, and how rumor has always been a part of our resistance. And if you're on YouTube, I'm drinking my coffee out of my cute hot air mug, which you can get on my website now. Insert ad here for merch. Before we dive into the madness, make sure you're following me on social media at _hotairpod on both Instagram and TikTok. Subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast, rate the show, and if you've got a wild queer theory or story of your own that you want to submit, head on over to hotairwithjoshuarobert.com and you can be featured in a future episode of Hot Air. Okay, let's get right into it. Let's get into these crazy conspiracies. Let's hit it. Part 1. The gay agenda conspiracy. Let's start with something that is quite a heavy news topic lately. So what exactly is this gay agenda that people talk about? If you ask certain corners of the internet, it's some kind of secret master plan to take over the world with rainbow flags, drag brunches, and gender neutral bathrooms. How insanely terrifying. Talk about spooky season. And honestly, if that were true, the world might be a little bit more fabulous and a little bit easier to navigate. But the actual story behind this phrase is a lot less camp and a lot more calculated. The term gay agenda, or sometimes homosexual agenda, was cooked up by conservative religious activists in the late 20th century, particularly in the United States, obviously. It was created as a way to frame the LGBTQ plus people's push for equal rights as something far more sinister. The idea was we weren't fighting for equality, we were plotting something. And that framing stuck because fear spreads faster than facts. But to really understand how this whole conspiracy took shape, we've got to rewind the clock just a little bit. And by just a little bit, I mean quite a bit. Back to the Cold War. During that era, paranoia was the national pastime. Everyone was afraid of infiltration from communists, from spies, from anyone who did not fit the norm. That fear extended to queer people, who were seen not only as immoral, but as national security risks. The government literally purged suspected gay employees in what's now called the Lavender Scare. The belief was that being gay made you susceptible to blackmail and therefore a threat to America. So you can see how early on the concept of queer people as secretive or dangerous insiders was baked right into public consciousness. Fast forward a few decades, the LGBTQ plus rights movement is gaining visibility. We've got activists, protests, people coming out, pride marches, and a lot of folks in power were very uncomfortable with that. In the early 1990s, a group called Springs of Life Ministries produced a video, literally titled The Gay Agenda. It spread like wildfire through church networks and conservative media, framing gay rights as a plot to destroy American family values. The creators used clips of pride parades, interviews, and fear-laden commentary to convince viewers that queer people weren't just asking for acceptance, they were trying to recruit and reprogram the culture. And there I ask, what culture? America is a melting pot of culture. It is a stew of culture. We don't even have our own culture. Go to Italy for culture. From there, the phrase became a rallying cry for anti-LGBTQ plus campaigns. You'd hear it from pulpits, on talk radio, and eventually in political debates, and we still hear it now. And every time it was used, it did the same thing, turned a human rights issue into a moral panic. Instead of talking about discrimination, people were suddenly talking about a takeover. The gays are taking over. I mean, technically we still are, but I would like to think in a very positive way. So get used to it, people. Groups like the Alliance Defending Freedom and the Family Research Council began pushing this language heavily, claiming that anti discrimination laws, same sex marriage, and inclusive education were all part of a coordinated homosexual agenda. Books like The Homosexual Agenda, Exposing the Principal Threat to Religious Freedom Today. Ooh, it doesn't roll off the tongue. That book pushed the idea even further, arguing that gay rights were a direct assault of Christianity. It wasn't just rhetoric, it was strategy. The goal was to shift the narrative to make LGBTQ plus equality sound like oppression for everyone. Now, what's wild about this is how effective that framing became. When you call something an agenda, it makes people picture organization, secret meetings, and manipulation. And the more visibility that queer folks gained in the media, the more visibility got twisted into proof. Shows with gay characters, agenda. Pride flags in Target, agenda. Schools teaching that queer people exist, definitely the agenda. And to be quite frank, I'm probably going to get some moans and groans for this. I can see why that would work when it comes to people who, quite frankly, are not very educated. And while that might sound laughable, the agenda myth has had real consequences. It's been used to justify everything from banning inclusive education to rolling back anti discrimination protections. It's also one of the roots of the newer groomer conspiracy theory that queer people are trying to influence or recruit children, which is just the same old lie in a shinier, nastier package. And let's be fucking real. The people that are grooming are the ones that are pointing the finger. And we have seen that a lot in the news. If you follow me on Instagram, every time there is a news story of a Republican, especially a Republican close to Trump, a lot of them are, arrested for essay against a minor, I share it. And it's pretty clear who's doing the grooming. So let's bring this back in. Let's reel it in. Focus, Josh. There's no secret committee of queers. Let's be clear. No secret committee. Nobody is plotting world domination. If anyone is, it's fucking Russia and Trump. There are advocacy organizations, just like any civil rights movement, that are fighting for equal treatment, fair laws, and safety. That's activism, not an agenda. The real gay agenda is simple: to live, to love, and to exist without fear. As the internet grew, so did the reach of this myth. It went global. Politicians in places like Hungary, Uganda, and Russia began adopting the same language, calling LGBTQ plus rights a foreign gay agenda that was meant to corrupt their culture, which at least they have culture. That framing became a tool of power, a way to paint human rights as cultural invasion. And once you tie queerness to global conspiracy, it becomes a catch-all villain for anything you don't like about modern society. In the 2010s and 2020s, the same rhetoric morphed again. The gay agenda started merging with another conspiracy theory, gender ideology. Now, instead of focusing just on sexuality, it targeted trans people and gender non-confirming folks, claiming there's a coordinated plot to erase gender altogether. Sound familiar? Same fear, new packaging, yet again. It's the gay agenda in a brand new outfit. One designed to inflame current culture wars around schools, sports, and kids. And again, I can see why it works for those people that have never met anybody from the LGBTQ plus community and live in their dad's basement. The psychology behind it is very interesting too. Studies show that belief in LGBTQ plus conspiracy theories is linked to authoritarian thinking and a worldview where everything unfamiliar feels like a threat. In other words, people who see the world as dangerous are more likely to see progress as part of a plan. because random change is scarier than intentional change. So when they see more queer representation or a kid who knows what non binary means, they assume there must be a hidden force behind it. But here's the truth: the only organized plan here is our collective desire to exist freely. Queer people have always built community out of necessity. We've organized for safety, for love, for healthcare, for justice, not to convert anyone, but to survive. The real agenda, if you even want to call it that, has always been visibility, equality, and joy. And let's not forget how humor has become a very powerful tool in reclaiming this narrative. When people accuse us of having a gay agenda, we lean right in. We're like, yes, we do. Brunch at 11. Overthrow heteronormity at 2 p.m. Perfect. We turn paranoia into a punchline because laughter defangs fear. The queer community has always known how to make the heavy stuff lighter, and that is part of our magic. And I mean, I live by that humor day in and day out. I take very serious situations and have to throw a little funny at them, a little sarcasm, even if it is wrapped up in a little bit of irritation. Just keeping it light, you know? Now, some of you might be wondering, if this myth is so ridiculous, why does it keep coming back? Well, it works. The idea of a hidden enemy is easy to rally against, and it gives people a sense of purpose, especially when the real issues like inequality, corruption, economic stability, the Epstein files feel too big to tackle. Blaming the gay agenda for cultural change is way easier than asking, why do people feel left behind? And what's that saying? It's easier to control a people if they're uneducated, right? Trump has even said, God, I'm bringing a lot of this back to Trump. He said stupid people vote for him. He literally said that. So here we are. And honestly, it's not just about queerness, right? The agenda narrative is part of a much bigger pattern in human behavior, where social progress gets painted as conspiracy. The civil rights movement had communist infiltration rumors. Feminism was accused of being an anti family plot. Every step towards inclusion comes with its own boogeyman. And again, let's be real, it's only the straight cisgender white men that are making up these conspiracies and pushing them upon us. And here's where things get a little bit hopeful. Despite decades of being painted as villains in someone else's story, the LGBTQ plus community has reclaimed its own narrative. We've gone from whispered fear to televised pride, from coded language to open celebration. Actually, people stealing our language, like, hey girl, or yes queen, or I mean, we adopted that from the Black community, but you know what I mean. Every rainbow flag that flies is not mind control, although we'll talk about that later. It is visibility. Every queer love story told on the screen is not propaganda, it is representation. And while the gay agenda myth still pops up in politics, I think it's losing its power a little bit because more people than ever know someone who's queer. And as there's more representation, there will be more of us. A lot of people love someone who is queer or are queer themselves. You can't demonize what is familiar. Visibility, conversation, and connection are the best antidotes to conspiracy. So, when someone throws out the gay agenda, maybe the best response is, yeah, equal rights, great drag brunches, and a killer playlist, and a fucking hot ass Halloween costume. You better believe it, because at the end of the day, there's no shadowy cabal, just millions of us trying to live authentically and joyfully. And that brings us to conspiracy theory part 2. The Babadook is gay. We're going to add some humor in here just a little bit. Now, before you roll your eyes or clutch your pearls, hear me out about the Babadook being a homo. This isn't just some internet joke. It's a full-blown cultural phenomenon. So grab your rainbow flags and your favorite horror flick snacks, because we're about to unpack how a creepy creature from a 2014 indie film became the LGBTQ plus community's most fabulous mascot. Let's rewind to 2014. The Babadook, directed by Jennifer Kent, premiered at Sundance and quickly gained critical acclaim for its chilling portrayal of grief and motherhood. The film centers on Amelia, a widowed mother, and her son Sam, who are haunted by a sinister entity known as the Babadook. It's a psychological horror that delves deep into the human psyche, exploring themes of loss, trauma, and the manifestation of inner demons. And if you're Scream obsessed like me, what is the quote? It's when Jenna Ortega's character is talking to Ghostface and she says, like, oh, like the Babadook. And he goes, that's a little fancy pants. And she goes, it's an amazing meditation on motherhood and grief. Yeah, that's what she says. Anyway, it's so funny. In life, so many moments come when I'm like, oh, that's a Scream quote. And do I quote it? Yes. And no one knows what I'm talking about. But bringing it back to the Babadook, here's the twist. Nowhere in the film is there any mention of the Babadook's sexual orientation. Yet somehow this monster became a queer icon. So how did this even happen? Honestly, this is something I didn't know a lot about. I just knew that the Babadook was a gay icon, and I was just like, how? How? Like, this makes no sense to me. So this was actually very interesting to learn a little bit more about. And it all started in late 2016 with a single Tumblr post. A user named Instagram posted a tongue-in-cheek comment. Whenever someone says the Babadook isn't openly gay, it's like, question mark, question mark. Did you even watch the movie? Question mark, question mark. This humorous observation quickly went viral, sparking a wave of memes and discussions across social media platforms. Fans began to reinterpret the Babadook's dramatic entrance and flamboyant demeanor as signs of his queerness. But the meme did not stop there. In December 2016, another Tumblr user shared a screenshot showing the Babadook listed under Netflix LGBTQ plus movies category. Whether this was a glitch or a joke or a deliberate act of meme making, it fueled the fire. The idea that the Babadook was a gay icon was now part of internet folklore. By June 2017, during Pride Month, the Babadook had become a symbol of queer resistance and visibility. He was featured in pride parades, drag performances, and even had his own line of rainbow-themed merchandise. The Babadook had transcended his role as a horror villain and became a beloved queer figure. But why did the LGBTQ plus community latch on to this particular horror character? Part of it lies in the film's themes. The Babadook is about a mother and a son dealing with the loss of a loved one and the manifestation of grief as a monstrous entity. For many in the queer community, this resonated deeply. The Babadook became a metaphor for struggles of being different, of facing societal rejection, and of embracing one's true self despite the darkness. And it's one of those things that might even be subconscious, right? Just like how when I explained in a previous episode why I loved Scream before I even knew that I was gay, it's because it's gay coded. There's something in there that just resonates with us and we don't even have to think about it. Same with the Babadook. And let's not forget the Babadook's aesthetic. With his top hat, his sharp claws, and the theatrical presence, he embodies a certain camp sensibility that aligns with queer culture. His over-the-top persona and dramatic flair made him a natural fit for drag performers and queer art. And now I'm thinking, I need to give this movie a rewatch. Maybe I'll watch it tonight. Actually, I don't think I ever finished it. I think I fell asleep, and when I fall asleep during a movie, I kind of forget about it. Director Jennifer Kent, when asked about the Babadook's newfound status as a gay icon, expressed her amusement and support. She appreciated how the internet had breathed new life into her creation, turning him into a symbol of queer empowerment. Kent even joked that the Babadook was in the closet, but hoped he would come out of the closet. Because I do think he comes out of the closet, right? In the movie. Does he live in a closet? I don't know. We'll find out on a rewatch. So what does this all mean? The Babadook's transformation from a horror villain to a queer icon is a testament to the power of community and reinterpretation. It shows how marginalized groups can take something seemingly unrelated and make it their own, finding meaning and representation where none was really intended in the first place. And really, there you have it. The Babadook is gay. Not because the filmmakers intended it, but because the LGBTQ plus community saw themselves in him. They embraced his flamboyance, his resilience, his unapologetic existence. In doing so, they turned a horror movie monster into a symbol of pride and defiance. And perhaps the Babadook didn't even know he was gay at the time as well, but now he is free to come out. And next up, conspiracy number 3. The rainbow is mind control. Let's talk about one of the most bizarre, glitter filled, tinfoil hat worthy conspiracies ever. The idea that rainbows, yes, the literal arc of colors that appears after a storm, are actually a tool for mind control. And I don't mean metaphorical, like we're all brainwashed by capitalism mind control. I mean, some people genuinely believe that the rainbow itself is a weapon, a tool, or a signal that is meant to manipulate us. Sounds ridiculous, right? Well, welcome to the fucking internet. So, where did this even start? Honestly, the origins are a little bit murky, but like a lot of these conspiracies, it has its roots in fear visibility, symbolism, and social change. The rainbow has long been a symbol for diversity and inclusion, particularly after the 1978 creation of the rainbow flag by Gilbert Baker, which I've spoken in length about and did a whole entire episode on, which is super interesting. I think we should all know it if you want to go back and listen. I think I put it out, yeah, in June in Pride Month, a whole history of the rainbow flag. But quick little recap, Gilbert Baker was a gay rights activist and artist. He designed the flag for San Francisco Pride, giving the LGBTQ plus community a symbol that celebrated hope and pride, of course, and love. And every color had its meaning: red for life, orange for healing, yellow for sunlight, green for nature, blue for harmony, and violet for spirit. And there was a pink in there was another color in there. It's changed over time. Now, of course, anytime a marginalized group becomes visible or celebrates itself publicly, there's always someone somewhere whispering, what are they really doing? And some conservative commentators and fringe theorists ran with it. Around the mid 2000s, you started seeing internet forums and obscure websites claiming that the rainbow was not just a harmless symbol, it was a subtle form of mind control. Some even tied it to secret government projects or hidden messages that were meant to normalize LGBTQ plus lifestyles and influence children. Can you imagine if the queers, the gays, had enough power to just create a rainbow in the sky? We would not be fighting for our rights. We'd be taking over the world. The language that was used in these posts is actually hilarious if you read it like fiction. They talk about chromatic manipulation, psychic wavelengths, and subliminal rainbow energy. One post I found literally argued that the color progression in the rainbow is designed to stimulate certain parts of the brain that control morality and obedience. That's a mouthful and hard to even wrap your head around. I mean, I wish that I were making that up. Imagine someone sitting there with a protractor and colored pencils, calculating how violet might make you question your life choices, or red is going to make you consider, I don't know, giving a BJ to a man down the road, even though you're straight and married with a wife. Like, how? How? I'm sure that's happened before, but you know where I'm going with that. Let's zoom out a little bit here and think historically for a second. The idea that colors or symbols could influence behavior is not new. In fact, color psychology has been studied for decades, but in very normal ways, like the designing market or calming hospital rooms. In the 1960s, some psychologists experimented with how light and color could affect mood. Combine that with Cold War paranoia about subliminal messaging, think Coca-Cola and chewing gum spies, all the way to the notorious CIA MK Ultra experiments. And if you don't know what those are, you got to go listen to a different podcast. It's not this one. But Last Podcast on the Left is a great podcast, and they go into all these wild theories and wild stories that actually have some weight to them. But it's easy to see how the leap happened in someone's head. If we can use light to influence soldiers or test subjects, why not a rainbow for social influence? And of course, as expected, the internet supercharged everything. By the 2010s, memes and viral posts about the rainbow conspiracy were all over Reddit, 4chan, and early YouTube. One popular claim was that the rainbow was a method for reprogramming kids to accept deviant lifestyles. And yes, that's exactly the wording that people used: deviant lifestyles. You can see the through line here. The rainbow as mind control is basically an evolution of decades old anti-LGBTQ plus rhetoric. It's just homophobia. It's a modern update on the classic homosexual agenda fears. Same panic, just more glitter and a little bit more color in there. But now it gets even stranger. Some theorists tried to tie rainbows to global events, suggesting that natural rainbows were not natural at all. According to some of these folks, every rainbow you see after a storm is actually a kind of psychotronic signal broadcasted from satellites or secret devices to subtly influence populations. There's a small but dedicated online corner where people post photos of rainbows and analyze them for hidden patterns or color frequencies. Allegedly, these things are linked to behavioral outcomes. Basically, it's like the Illuminati got bored and decided to decorate the sky, is how people are thinking about these random ass floating rainbows. Of course, science says no to all of this. There is no evidence that rainbows influence your thoughts, your personality, or your loyalty to any political cause. Rainbows are light refracting through water droplets. We've all seen it in science class. It's producing a natural spectrum. The only thing they're controlling is your aesthetic sense, making you want to Instagram them with a filter that makes your followers jealous. Like, hello. The only thing rainbows influence you to do is stop, look at the sky, and go, damn, that's pretty, and take a picture. But here's the thing, the conspiracy persists because it's not really about rainbows. It's about fear of change and symbolic power. When the LGBTQ plus community reclaimed the rainbow flag, that symbol of pride suddenly became a lightning rod for conspiracy. The rainbow mind control narrative is just a modern, over the top way of expressing anxiety over visibility, identity, and social transformation. If you can't stop progress, make it sound like it's a weapon. Classic tactic. And naturally, the queer community had a field day with this. In true queer fashion, what started as a scary idea became hilarious. People made memes, rainbows with mind control rays, rainbow sunglasses that rewire your brain, even rainbow themed cocktails with warnings like caution may alter sexual orientation. Pride parades embraced it too, with rainbow everything, obviously. The message became yes, we are fabulous, and yes, your conspiracy is ridiculous. There's also something psychologically fascinating about the persistence of this theory. Belief in conspiracy theories often spikes in times of social upheaval. Studies in social psychology suggest that when people feel powerless or threatened by social change, they're more likely to see hidden forces behind visible events. In other words, if someone sees a rainbow flag, a pride sticker, or even a natural rainbow, they might interpret it as part of a larger plan because it challenges their worldview. So when someone walks into Target and sees the pride display, which was not there this year because, well, you know why. When people used to see that pride display when they're walking in with their children, they are going to think that the gays are trying to convert their children just because it's something that they are uncomfortable and unfamiliar with. Even celebrities have poked fun at it. RuPaul, for example, joked on social media and he said, "Careful, kids, every rainbow you see might turn you into a drag superstar." The humor, as I said earlier, helps diffuse fear and reclaim power over the symbol. And that's really what's happening here. The rainbow remains a symbol of joy, inclusion, and visibility. And the conspiracy is a cautionary tale about how absurd fear can become when combined with imagination, misinformation, and perhaps a little tinfoil made into the shape of a hat. Now, while we're laughing at this, there's an important lesson embedded here. Conspiracies like the rainbow mind control myth show how symbols that are deeply meaningful to marginalized communities can be twisted into something sinister by outsiders. But they also show the resilience of those communities. Turning a tool of fear into a badge of pride is quintessential queer ingenuity. So, the next time someone claims that the rainbow is trying to control your mind, just smile, post your most fabulous pride selfie, and remember, the only thing a rainbow actually controls is your sense of awe and wonder. And maybe if you're lucky, it'll make your day a little brighter. And if you're extra lucky, there might be a pot of gold at the end of it. Now we're going to talk about my favorite conspiracy of all, conspiracy number 4. Gay aliens built the pyramids. Yes. Buckle your spaceship seatbelts and maybe grab your favorite crystal because we're going to head straight into space now and then we're going to go back in time to talk about one of the weirdest, most fabulous conspiracies floating around the internet, the theory that gay aliens built the pyramids. And I live for this because I used to be obsessed with Egyptian history when I was, probably in like grade 4, 5, 6. Even now, I love documentaries on it. And I also love aliens. I'm dying to see a UFO. So, okay. Anyway, you heard that right. Gay aliens, the ones with perfect cheekbones, glowing jumpsuits, and apparently an unmatched talent for architecture and geometry. Somehow, they supposedly flew millions of light years across the galaxy just to show up in ancient Egypt and say, let's make the desert pop. Let's build some shit up in this bitch. Now, obviously, this is not true as far as we know. No extraterrestrial twinks in crop tops descended upon the Nile to supervise construction. But the idea of gay aliens building the pyramids is so bizarre and oddly beloved online that it deserves a deep dive. Because behind the humor and the memes, there's actually a fascinating history of how conspiracy culture, homophobia, and our obsession with mystery all collided to create this fabulous intergalactic fever dream. So let's start where most bad ideas begin, the History Channel. Back in the 1960s and 70s, a Swiss author named Erich von Däniken published a book called Chariots of the Gods, in which he argued that ancient civilizations were visited and essentially taught by extraterrestrial beings. And we've probably all heard of these theories. He suggested that structures like the pyramids, Stonehenge, and the Nazca lines were too advanced to have been made by humans at the time. His theory: aliens came to Earth, dropped some knowledge, and left us to figure out TikTok on our own. Now, von Däniken never said the aliens were gay. That part came later, courtesy of the internet's favorite game, What If We Made This Theory Even More Ridiculous? But here's where it gets a little spicy. Ancient alien theories have always carried an undertone of cultural bias. The idea that ancient Egyptians, Mayans, or other non Western civilizations couldn't possibly have been smart enough to build something incredible is, well, it's pretty racist. It's an old colonial trope dressed up in, again, tinfoil. Then enter the internet, where everything gets queered, memed, and exaggerated. Around the mid 2010s, Twitter and Tumblr users started joking about how dramatic, aesthetic, and frankly, camp the alien depictions on TV were. Like, somebody posted, "Why do they always look so moisturized?" And there was somebody that responded, "Because they're gay aliens who built the pyramids." And boom, that was it. The meme was born. Gay, moisturized aliens built the pyramids. It's that simple when it's on Twitter. Soon after, TikTok was flooded with edits of buff, glittery aliens voguing in front of the Great Sphinx with captions like, "We didn't come to conquer, we came to contour," which is genius. But beyond the humor, the theory taps into a few deeper cultural threads. First, the alien builder myth reflects how we deal with awe. When humans can't immediately explain something, we invent stories, gods, magic, or in this case, a celestial construction crew. It's comforting to imagine a cosmic reason for the pyramids rather than admitting that humans 4,500 years ago were just really good at math and also had nothing else to do. Although I do prefer the gay alien theory, I'm down with that. Then there's the gay part of the gay alien theory, which is both a parody and a reclaiming. For centuries, anything different, mysterious, or misunderstood got labeled as unnatural or paranormal, just like queerness is labeled as unnatural to some. So, queer people taking the alien trope and saying, fine, we're the weird ones from outer space who made all the fabulous architecture that y'all are still obsessed with, is both a joke and a statement. It's camp resistance at its finest. And again, I'm so okay with it. And let's not forget that queer culture has always loved sci-fi and also horror, which kind of blends in with the sci-fi and the alien aspect of it. Think about it. The drama, the outfits, the metaphor of otherness, from Star Trek to The Fifth Element to E.T. himself, there's always been a quiet undercurrent of queerness in these space stories because everyone in there is so misunderstood or misidentified and a little bit fabulous. And they all look so different and unique, and it's like all these alien races just living together in these films. So there's a lot of queerness in space stories because who relates more to being misunderstood, misidentified, and a little bit fabulous more than queer people? Like think about it, the Star Trek outfits, how unique all the characters look, or even in like Star Wars or any sci-fi film. There's this fierceness in like their spacesuits, and then they have like weird jewelry or unique makeup or wild hair colors. Like, hello, queer coded. There's even academic writing about this. Scholars like Jose Esteban Munoz have talked about how queer people cruise futurity. It's a hard word to say, futurity. Oof, gotta work on that. Imagining better worlds and alternate realities. Seems about right. So when queer creators on TikTok say gay aliens built the pyramids, what they're really saying is queer people have always been here. We've always shaped culture, art, and civilization, whether you recognize it or not. Think about how many famous painters we study, like Da Vinci, who did Mona Lisa, and there's the theory that that could be a portrait of himself in drag. Like, and everyone in the world is forced to study that painting in school. Like, if we were actually to know the facts and know that that was him in drag, that might not be the case. So instead of being erased from history, queerness becomes kind of the architect of it, whether you like it or not. Now, let's sprinkle in a little science and archaeology because I know some of you are saying, like, what about those laser straight pyramid edges? Like, come on, everything is so perfect. And I would agree with you. The actual pyramids were built through brilliant engineering, organization, and sheer human labor. No space age technology required, as far as we know. Wink, wink. Historians and Egyptologists have detailed how ramp systems, leverage, and tens of thousands of skilled workers, that's how they achieved this level of precision. And yet, people cling to the alien idea because it's sexy, it's mysterious, it gives the pyramids a narrative that feels cosmic instead of mathematical. It's storytelling over scholarship, and storytelling is powerful. Now, imagine mixing that cosmic mystery with queer culture's love for irony, glam, and drama. Of course, gay aliens caught on. The aesthetic practically writes itself. Chrome bodysuits, disco lighting coming down from a UFO, vaporwave hieroglyphics. It's giving ancient extraterrestrial runway. And there are hieroglyphs that resemble spaceships. There is some weird evidence out there that's up to interpretation. But we even see at Pride events, you'll see references to it now. People dressed as alien architects with "Beam me up, bitch" written across their chest in gold glitter. It's silly, but also powerful. I might do that next year. Beam me up, bitch. Because it takes something that is meant to mock and turns it into celebration. It's worth noting, too, that every great conspiracy theory says more about the people who believe it than the theory itself. And I believe it. So it really just says that I think gay aliens are the way and that I would currently like to be taken into outer space and far away from this planet at times. But really, though, those who earnestly believe that aliens built the pyramids often crave belonging to a secret community. They feel in on a secret, special, they feel enlightened. And does that sound familiar? It's like a mirror image of how queerness once existed underground, full of secret signals. So, in a strange way, queer people understand that impulse to see hidden meaning in symbols that outsiders do not often get. The only difference? We use those signals for pride and not paranoia. Even the language around the gay alien theory mirrors religious myth. Ancient texts often describe divine beings descending from the heavens, radiant and beautiful, and sometimes gender ambiguous. Angels, for instance, were originally described as androgynous, not male or female. So, in a poetic sense, we've been telling stories about gay aliens since before we even had the word alien. And honestly, if you look at those hieroglyphs, long limbs, eyeliner for days, fabulous jewelry, maybe the aliens just took notes from ancient Egyptian drag. So maybe it went the other way around. But what makes this theory especially funny is how it became a sort of meta meme. People joking about it while simultaneously acting like it's real just to mess with conspiracy theorists. There are Reddit threads where users pretend to be descendants of the intergalactic queer architects of Giza, posting fake blueprints and ancestral selfies and alien drag. It's satire layered on satire. And now I want to go AI myself into a drag queen alien. But that's the beauty of queer humor. We can take the most absurd accusation and spin it into performance art. There's actually a really great quote from Gilbert Baker, who I spoke about earlier, the creator of the rainbow flag, that actually kind of fits here. He said, "We needed something that expressed our joy, our beauty, and our power." End quote. And that's exactly what the gay aliens meme does in its own kind of weird, chaotic way. It takes a tired conspiracy and makes it camp. It transforms fear into laughter and shame into pride and nonsense into narrative. But at the end of the day, what's really behind the idea of gay aliens building the pyramids isn't necessarily aliens at all. It's projection. People project their insecurities, their disbelief of human brilliance, and their discomfort with difference into the stars. And also, we're all pretty lazy now. So it's like we can't imagine the amount of work and effort it would take day in and day out to make those pyramids. So naturally, it couldn't be human because we're all stuck behind our phones. But the joke is on you, people, because if gay aliens did build the pyramids, they clearly had some taste. Perfect geometry, check. Gold accents, check. Still standing thousands of years later, that is called legacy. And it's a pretty good representation of the queer community. So, no, extraterrestrial interior designers didn't swing by ancient Egypt to install a few big ass triangles. The pyramids were built by humans. Incredible, intelligent, creative humans. But the myth of gay aliens building them tells us something deeper, that queerness and creativity are always connected. That when people can't explain beauty, they reach for magic. And honestly, maybe that is the most flattering conspiracy of all, because if you think something that stunning required otherworldly queer energy, well, I will take it as a compliment and I will fucking run with it. So the next time that you see a picture of the Great Pyramid of Giza, picture it being topped with a disco ball, illuminated by strobe lights from another galaxy, because whether it's fact or fantasy, one thing's for sure: the future and the past will always be a little bit queer. And like, not to sound like a weirdo, but I do think that aliens had something to do with the pyramids. I'm just going to go with it. I am like laying it all out there for you. All right, we're going to get to our last conspiracy theory, one that is a little bit true and a little bit not. Conspiracy theory number 5, the gay bomb. Now, this is one of the most absurd, gloriously ridiculous, and historically true military experiments that was ever proposed: the gay bomb. And yes, I'm saying historically true in the sense that this wasn't a rumor or a meme that someone made up. The US Air Force actually considered it. Like, someone in a government office looked at chemical weapons and thought, what if we make people gay? Let's unpack this. The story begins in the mid 1990s, during the post Cold War era, when the US military was experimenting with all sorts of non lethal chemical weapons. The idea was, what if you could incapacitate enemy troops without killing them? Tear gas, stink bombs, sticky foam, all of these made sense. And then someone apparently thought, what if instead of making people pass out, we just make them lust for each other? And I'm going to come right out and say it and say that whoever made this up was definitely closeted. This concept first appeared in a 1994 Air Force research paper called Gay Bomb: Proposed Non-Lethal Chemical Weapon to Disrupt Enemy Forces. Yes, that paper literally exists, and it is titled Gay Bomb. And yes, the researchers proposed creating a chemical that could be dropped on enemy troops to make them sexually attracted to each other, presumably so they'd stop fighting and start, dancing in pairs, kissing in the trenches. Honestly, the logistics are horrifying and fabulous all at the same time. And I think whoever created this idea, that's really just a fantasy and something they could not act upon. I'm just gonna laugh this whole time. So okay, hold on. Before we get too scandalized, it's important to note this bomb was never built, okay? As far as we know. It was a concept study. But the very fact that it was seriously considered is what makes it a perfect mix of absurdity, fear, and human imagination and or fantasy. So why did this idea even exist in the first place? Well, as with all military experiments, the 1990s were a time of creative desperation. The Cold War had ended, budgets were high, and non-lethal weapons were trendy. Military planners were looking for ways to disable enemies without casualties, and somewhere along the way, someone thought, chemical aphrodisiac. It's almost comically literal. The military wanted to disrupt cohesion by making other soldiers fall in love with each other instead of fighting. It's like a rom com weaponized. Love Actually, War Edition. Like the opposite of war is love. It's just, it's so fucking funny when you really think about it. Of course, as you imagine, this proposal did not sit well with everyone. It sparked jokes, outrage, and a lot of eyebrow raising in Congress. There are even quotes in the literature expressing the obvious logistical nightmare. Like, I'm going to read a quote in a second, but can you imagine just turning a whole army gay? Like, what? Okay, so one quote said, the likelihood of controlling the effects of this chemical on large numbers of individuals is low. The social, ethical, and political ramifications are significant. End quote. So, translation, this is insane and probably illegal, but yes, someone literally typed this up in a government office. It's also worth noting how the gay bomb plays into cultural fears and humor. For decades, queer people have been the target of fantastical fears. Homosexuals are corrupt youth. Gay people are part of the secret agenda. Basically, all the things I talked about before. The gay bomb takes those fears and literally weaponizes them, turning them on their head with satire before the internet was even big enough to meme it properly. Can you imagine if this was a thing right now, how viral that would go? By the early 2000s, the gay bomb had been widely circulated online as a humorous anecdote about military absurdity. Websites like Snopes and Wired debunked it, but it quickly became a cult favorite among LGBTQ plus audiences and meme makers and comedians. The idea of a weapon that makes everyone gay was absurd enough to be funny, but also tied directly to a historical document, which made it even juicier. Let's zoom out for a second and think about why this story resonates. First, it's inherently queer in its ridiculousness, so over the top. The military, the most heteronormative, rigidly masculine institution imaginable, especially now where they're trying to be, is proposing a chemical weapon based on sexual attraction. That's like if a drag queen walked into a board meeting and suddenly everyone decided to start voguing. It's chaotic and it subverts power structures just by existing. Second, it highlights a history of scientific and military absurdity. Governments have done all sorts of strange experiments. LSD in unsuspecting soldiers, mustard gas tests, psychological operations that are basically pranks on a massive scale. The gay bomb fits right into that tradition. It's absurd, questionable, and undeniably fascinating. Now let's talk about impact. Even though it was never built, the idea of the gay bomb has been referenced in pop culture. Comedians like John Oliver and Stephen Colbert have joked about it, and LGBTQ plus writers and meme makers have claimed it as a badge of honor. The military's own admission that queer love is powerful enough to stop a war. Talk about a confidence boost. Psychologically, the gay bomb is a perfect case study in society's fear of sexuality, particularly queer sexuality. People project control anxieties onto it. The idea that sexual orientation can be manipulated or weaponized or feared, and queer audiences respond by reclaiming the humor, turning it into camp memes and satire. It also lines up with some of people's belief that being gay is a choice, right? Some even argue that the gay bomb is kind of empowering. In a way, it imagines a world where desire and connection are more potent than violence. Obviously, we do not want chemical weapons influencing anyone, but as a metaphor, it's pure queer fantasy. The ultimate love conquers all scenario with a side of, again, absurdity. And let's not forget about the memes. Oh, we love a meme. If you've spent any time online, you've probably seen renditions of the gay bomb as a glitter bomb, a rainbow missile, or an Air Force jet with disco lights. These visual jokes are brilliant because they combine history, fantasy, and camp. Exactly the kind of absurd storytelling that thrives in our queer communities. For example, one popular TikTok edit shows a fighter jet dropping glitter, sequins, and rainbow confetti on a battlefield with the caption, "Mission accomplished. Peace through fabulousness." That's the kind of humor that turns fear into empowerment, making the gay bomb less of a scary military plot and more of a metaphor for queer resilience and creativity. Even if we take it seriously for a second, just a second though, the practicalities of a gay bomb are quite laughable. How would you control sexual attraction chemically across thousands of people? That insinuates being gay might be a choice, and it is not. Would it last for hours, minutes, days? Could you accidentally affect your own troops? Ooh, scary. The more you think about it, the more insane it becomes. And that insanity is part of why it's so endlessly shareable online. Ultimately, the gay bomb isn't about actual weapons or military tactics. It's about the intersection of fear, sexuality, and humor. The military accidentally gave the internet and queer communities a story that's perfect for satire, meme culture, and ironic performance. And in classic queer fashion, we've polished it and made it dope as fuck. So the next time that someone tells you that queer love is weak, just remind them. In 1994, the US Air Force considered using gay love as a weapon in order to stop war. So if that doesn't say that love is powerful and queer love is powerful, I don't know what does. But let's be honest for a second, I would volunteer for the gay bomb. Not for war purposes, obviously, just for the sheer fun of it. Can you imagine the runway ready battlefield choreography, the glitter, the drag, the party, the festival, the ultimate the ultimate gay festivity? That's actually hilarious. Someone needs to do that. Not with a real gay bomb, just like a pretend thing. It's the ultimate metaphor for queer power descending from the skies. Like, sign me up. And there you have it, the gay bomb. It's ridiculous and strangely inspiring. It's the story that shows how human fear, imagination, and humor collide, and how queer culture has a knack for turning even the strangest historical tidbits into campy, empowering, and laugh out loud narratives. And that brings us to the end of this episode. Okay, we did it. Conspiracy sleuths, we did it. Today we learned that the so called gay agenda might just be equal rights and good taste. That the Babadook is our unbothered queer king or queer queen, depending on how you want to look at it. We learned that the rainbow cannot control your mind unless it's making you crave another pride outfit. That aliens, if they were gay, probably had the best interior design in the galaxy. And that the gay bomb proves you truly can't make any of this stuff up. There's a little bit of truth in everything. And at the end of the day, these theories say more about fear and fascination with queerness than they do about reality. And we, as always, turn it into art, laughter, and pride. If you enjoyed this episode, do not forget to subscribe, rate the show, just scroll on down on whatever app you're listening on. I would really appreciate it if you guys would leave a review. You can follow along on social media, on Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod for clips of episodes and some more hot takes that are a little bit hotter than they are here sometimes. And if you have, maybe there's another queer conspiracy theory that I don't even know about. But aside from that, if you have a listener story or a topic suggestion, drop it in my DMs on social media or head to my website, hotairwithjoshuarobert.com. Spooky season is almost over. I'm like, should I just have a gay conspiracy podcast forever? Because this stuff is so interesting to me. Maybe that will be a spin-off of Hot Air. But stay sexy, stay fucking weird, and stay spooky. So until next time, I'll see you next Tuesday.